three of you would at least turn on your video for a minute or two. Welcome to the meeting. We're back to had the opportunity to get Stephen, and so we went back to Zoom because he's in San Diego. He runs the San Diego Photoshop group, and he said volunteered to be a speaker, and I don't pass up volunteers very often. So the first time you spoke here has to have been in the early 2000s, was it?
Right.
And he's presented two or three times since then. And so I'm going to let him to do introductions to himself. He's an Adobe professional, and he's been around photography for a good long time. He teaches at, what is it, San Diego State? Is that where you teach?
Well, I'll tell you what. I used to teach. I think my first teaching job was over at UCSD,
Okay.
and it was with the extension section, and I taught there for like 11 years. Um, it was a section that the public and the students at UCSD can all participate into the program. And I taught the advanced darkroom techniques. That was back when I was teaching 4x5 camera photography and darkroom techniques using large format film. Um, and then from there, I taught at Palomar College, which is in San Marcos, again in the San Diego area. That led me up to Irvine Valley College, I think it was my next one. That led me up to currently where I'm at now, which is Golden West College and Coastline College, and also Otis College Arts and Design in Los Angeles. I taught there for I think about 2.5 years or so at Otis. And then after that, which I'm also currently teaching at, is a college it's more of a teaching institution. Um, it's called Studio Arts. So I do the 3D design and animation for Studio Arts. So you're going to discover that my skill sets are varied. I started drawing and painting, and in fact, let me share my screen while I'm talking to you. And this is my website, chromolution.com. What I'm going to do is I've copied that and I'm going to paste that into the chat box. So you guys can also go and take a look at my website. Mike Packard, which is here, he was just speaking a few minutes ago. He's the one that designed the site, did a fantastic job. And my passion is the fine arts of photography and the fine art of digital art. So I started after I finished my photography certificate at Palomar College. I went professional, and that eventually turned into digital, getting involved in Photoshop and a variety of other programs. I'm not going to go into a long history, but that transitioned to Photoshop. Photoshop transitioned into digital painting and digital compositing and digital fine art. That transitioned into 3D fine art, 3D design. So on my website, I'm going to kind of walk through it here. You'll see a transition of images that shows you some of the fine art work that I do in Photoshop. If you go to the About page, you get to check out where I will be speaking. So if I click on the speaking schedule, and I love the way Mike set this up because I can just go to my Google Calendar, type it in, and it will automatically pop up right here. And you can see there's the area Seattle Photoshop Users Group at the very top, which is today. The next meeting will be on the 19th, this Saturday, where I will be doing another a Blender 3D. I'm also, in addition to being the president of the San Diego or the Photoshop users group here in San Diego, I'm also the president of the Blender 3D user group, which we meet on Saturday. So this Saturday we have a meeting, 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. And you can click on that to find out more about that. But you get to see where I'm located, where I'm going, more presentations at the San Diego Portrait Club, the Business of Photography for the Photoshop Users Group. I will be presenting for the Dark Roomers, another a workshop there. And of course, this will keep filling up for the rest of the year. I'm constantly getting asked to speak at different places. So, all right, so I'm gonna go back to the top.
Didn't you
About
just speak at Comic-Con or something?
Yeah, I'm invited to speak every year at the San Diego Comic Con. I just finished speaking at WonderCon, which is the San Diego Comic Con, but it's based in Anaheim, which is about an hour and 15 minutes north of San Diego, but run by the same company that runs the San Diego Comic Con. I also speak at San Diego at Los Angeles Comic Con as well as BlenderCon. So yeah, I do. Thank you for reminding me, Mike. I do speak at a variety of conventions, and I will also be speaking at Wonderfest, which is in Louisville. I will be there in person, and that is a 3D convention. We can talk more about that later. So About Stephen Burns is there. If you want to know more about me, there I am. More information as to who I am. Look at the little doggies. Those are fun dogs. And so I have a little resume there. And I know that resume's got to be updated. Testimonials, so you can kind of check out here. These are the workshops that I teach. We'll talk about more about those later on. I teach a 5-week Photoshop class, a beginning, intermediate, and advanced Photoshop classes. Each genre is 5 weeks. I will talk more about that as well. The showcase is where you want to see my artwork. If you want to go to digital art, you click on it, and the digital art will come up, and you get to see the digital art that I do. And this is mostly done in Photoshop. Okay. The digital art is all done in Photoshop. Everything you see here is there's no AI here, by the way. I want to make that clear because when I did this stuff, AI didn't exist. Right? It looks like it's AI because we're getting jaded by the AI look, but none of this is AI. This is all from my imagination. These are my digital paintings. These are not photographs. Let me click on it. It's going to take a minute to pop up here. These are not photographs that I'm painting on top of. These are actually hand from scratch. I'm painting in Photoshop. And these are some of the examples of what I do. In addition to the photography that I do, I'll show you some of that in just a little bit. So yeah, you're welcome to go there and check that out on your own. We got the photographic art here. And if I click on that, the photographs will come up. And we're going to talk about this, some of these things you're going to see in tonight's presentation, because we're going to be talking about the value-based workflow and something I think is very, very critical to you guys as photographers, because your education in photography, at least most people's education in photography, most people I'm meeting today have not gone to school for photography. I went to school for photography. I went for several years in the classroom, constantly being critiqued by real professional photographic instructors who cared about your work being the best. One of the problems we have today is so many people, especially in the younger generation, have not really gone to school. They're getting their education off of the internet, and oftentimes believe that they're the greatest in the world because they have 10,000 friends on Facebook that tell them they're the greatest in the world. But there are rules to art, and our rules of photography it comes from the master painters. It comes from the master sculptors. So our art should reflect the 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 philosophies that match those of some of the masters of the past in other genres. Okay, so you guys can do that. You can go take a look on your own. And just very briefly, I'll just another section here, my 3D art, and if anybody's even interested, you guys are more of a photography group, but every Saturdays I do the Blender class. It's a 3D art combination of Photoshop and stuff I've done in 3D, created ships in 3D and used them to composite. This is a nice little fine art piece. Combination of Photoshop and Blender. Really fun stuff. More like concept art stuff. But it's this combination of 3D and 2D digital. So my skill sets are broad. I have a strong education in art in general, and I use it to apply to to whatever I'm creating. Workshops, we'll talk about those when I'm done with the presentation. We'll come back and we'll take a look at this real quick. The store, if you want to know, join my 5-week workshop or my photography workshop, which is the Eastern Sierra coming up in November. No, it's October. It's in October. I've got room in that class. I can get you involved, and so forth. So yeah, that's it. This is the site. Mike did a fantastic job. If you guys have any suggestions for how to improve it or things to add to it, let me know. I'll be happy to add it to it. So let's talk about our presentation today, the value-based workflow. So I'd also do a presentation very similar to this at the fair, at the International Photography Exhibition, because it's not only an exhibition, it also includes a whole series of workshops that the judges of the fair or local professional photographers will donate their time to come and do 1-hour presentations throughout the entire month of the fair. And one of my presentations is called "Toning It Down," and it's basically a form of the value-based workflow concept. All right, so let's talk about this. Let's talk about this from a more practical point of view. We're going to go back to drawing and painting, and you guys, you can turn on your microphone so we can get a dialogue going here. I love that. If we are going to create, say, a drawing, okay? And let's use one of these as an example. Let's use this one as an example here. When we do a drawing, and that's exactly what this is, we start with a pencil to do what? Right? We're going to sketch something out. Well, what is the color of that sketch that we're creating? What is a value, right? Then what we do is we apply a shading factor on top of those sketches. Those are going to create a system of shaded values to create depth, detail, and texture. That's what we're missing in photography. Unless you follow the masters, the black and white masters, we're missing a lot of how to improve our color. What's happening is that as photographers, our camera gives us color from the get-go. It gives us color from the get-go. And when we go into Photoshop, we have a habit of working everything in color. We have a habit of working the color. I think that's a poor way to work. Your depth, your detail, your expression is in the black and white, not in the color. It's in the values. I won't call it black and white anymore. I'm gonna call it values. It's in the values. Values is just black and white. The painters call them values, photographers call it black and white. So your detail, your texture, your depth, your emotion is in the values. So quickly here, I'm going to talk about this whole value concept. You get color. Here's my, I just went into Photoshop and created this chart. Here's your color, your red, green, and blue, cyan, magenta, and yellow. And I even have strips of it here where I have the single color, red, green, and blue, red, the green to blues going straight down, where I'm adding a system of values to it. We get that in Photoshop all the time. We'll go in Photoshop. We'll take a look at just a little bit. So every one of these colors or this value system, well, let me put it this way. These colors have a value equivalent. That's over here to the right. Right? That's over here to the right. So this over here to the right is the same exact thing as what you see to the left, except you're looking at the value equivalent of those colors here. All right. So my suggestion is let's not work your imagery in color. Work it as a value. Learn to master the values. Let's go back to what Ansel Adams was trying to teach us. Go back to the black and white values. Master the values. Master getting this phenomenal black and white print from your color, and then use those values to create an outstanding color. All right, so let's go further. Let me show you some quick examples. And this is all my images here that I've shot recently. This one I shot in Oregon, I think it was. I was driving up to Vancouver because I was speaking at SIGGRAPH one year, and I decided to take 2 weeks off and drive up the coast all the way up to Vancouver, Canada, and photograph while I was going to go to the convention. So value-based workflow. This is an actual color image. This is not a black and white image to the left because it's so overcast and the subject matter was so monotone by nature. It looks like it's just all black and white. It's not. It's color. This is actually there's very little color in this image. But the concept is how to control your values so that the primary subject matter in your photograph is the thing that jumps out and says, it's me, I'm the subject. I'm the thing that you're trying to express. So when we look at this image, we have a lot of competing values in here all over the place. So much so that the main subject, which is this salted log or this sun bleached log, is lost. But if you learn to master your values, we can tone them down as we see to the right so that the subject matter is the thing that jumps out at you and not everything else around it. All right, so let me give you another example. I want to come back to this one. So let's go past this one and we're going to go back to this one. So learning to use your colors to produce phenomenal black and whites. And I mean phenomenal black and whites. You learn to master the lower tones so that you have detail in those lower tones, but yet they have richness and depth. The lower tones represents the bass in music. The higher tone represents the treble in music. So you're getting this three-dimensional feel and look. Even with abstraction, the rules still apply. Determine what the subject is, and then determine where the base values are, how to utilize those base values to isolate or make your abstraction more dynamic. Simple shapes, simple forms. Again, using values to create this sense of depth. Richer tones, not so deep tones, graduating up toward brighter tones, but those brighter tones have detail, beautiful detail.
So Stephen, can I
Don't
ask a
neglect the
question?
detail. When you
Stephen,
saw Ansel Adams' work, his work was luminous. And it wasn't luminous because he was adding contrast. In fact, most of his work had very little contrast. It was the way he just let me put it, I can't even talk today. It was the way he juxtaposed values next to one another, gave them the view or the feeling that they were really luminous when they actually really weren't. So that takes mastering subtlety. This is on my Death Valley class. We went to one of the ghost towns up there, and this is a lot of concrete structures are all around us. Bright graffiti on the concrete structure, and I'm using light and shadow as a form of composition, right? Almost as a form of abstraction. Again, using those deeper tones, mid tones, brighter tones to be strategically placed in the composition. The same thing here. This is for my Central Coast workshop where we're based in Santa Cruz. And we went up the mountains and we found a little farmhouse and we stopped. The students and I stopped and we photographed this very mundane, bland, no color, just dilapidated wood everywhere. But in post, we learn to master the tones. We can create this sense of composition and sense of depth that makes the photograph interesting. Shot from Death Valley. Again, the same concept. In color, I think this is very drab, but with values, I can bring out more emotion. Kids, just keep this in mind. We're going to get to some color in just a little bit. The whole idea of mastering these values is critical because it's harder to learn black and white, mastering black and white, than it is to learn color. Black and white, there's so much subtlety. If you get into nudes, black and white nudes, it's even harder because there's a lot of subtlety there. Mastering the tones. This is in Death Valley. The range between the shadows and the range between the highlights in the sand dunes in Death Valley is only 1.5 stops difference. That means you're getting a flat as hell image, right? Learn to master your values and you can bring out more expression and more depth. This is a shot that Aaron Houston and I just did together over in San Luis Obispo. This is the original shot with my Fuji 50S Mark II, medium format digital camera. This is the raw shot straight out of the camera, no manipulation. Now let's apply my value-based workflow technique to it. Different, isn't it? So before, and after, before and after.
Stephen,
All right, here's another example.
question.
Aaron and I found a cliff area shooting down into the ocean. Interesting interplay of rocks. And then I applied the value-based workflow to it. See that? The difference? In fact, let's do this and go forward. Before, after, before, after. And another example of a value-based workflow already applied to a sunset shot in San Luis Obispo. This shot taken in Eastern Sierra workshop coming up in October this year. The color is just off the charts. It's become, well, Death Valley is one of my favorite places, but this is another one of my favorite because the scenery that we're photographing there is all about color. It's all about color. The color is fiery, and I mean fiery everywhere. You think you wouldn't need manipulation, but you do, right? So this is a nice little abstract with my telephoto of this scene. This is part of the Eastern Sierra workshop as we go to Bodie. So this is a shot in Bodie, again with the value-based workflow applied to it. So this wood is normally very bland. There's a very flat, soft seam. Then applying the values to it properly really helps this stuff to come out. Another example of abstraction. And I'm going to go quickly. Another example in the Eastern Sierra workshop. You got these valley full of these fiery trees. And I just found this one little section that just had just a small little clump of yellow leaves surrounded by this shadowy blue all around it, which I enjoyed. So I had to take that one. All right, Death Valley, using a neutral value system to bring out this feeling of movement. See if I can get this to zoom in a little bit. There we go. And let's push this back here. There we go. The salt flats in Death Valley. I love nature. I love the landscape photography. I love abstraction. I think you could be more expressive with an abstract image than you can trying to document. This one needs more work, but I figured it'd be a good example of seeing how we can work the values here. But I'm going to give you an example. I'm going to go in, we're going to take an image, I'm going to show you, kind of get you guys to think a little differently. This is in Death Valley, one of the ghost towns. This is one of Aaron Houston's favorite places. Aaron Houston is often my assistant on these classes, workshop classes. I met him through Adobe. He used to be the community manager for Adobe way back when. Howard, that was how Howard and I met, was through Aaron Houston. More examples. This is actually this is the Central Coast Workshop near the Santa Cruz area. This was actually a boat yard where they were repairing the old boats, and it makes it great for abstraction. So I bring the students in there, and we photograph in that area as well. This is the same boat yard, and I love the abstraction of paint. It kind of reminds me of a painting by I'm forgetting names right now. The German abstract expressionist. I'll remember it in a little bit. But another example, using values. So when I photographed this was very flat and it was all evenly lit. Right? But that's not going to give you the best expression of this image. So I learned to control the values so that the primary important aspect of the image comes out and your eye goes to exactly where I want it to go. Just a quick little shot in Vegas using the same technique. The color looks like it's really overly saturated, but it's not. It's just interplaced with a lot of values. It makes it look like it's oversaturated. All right, let's see. Are we at the end of this here? Oh, there we go. Death Valley, sand dunes. Again, this is shot early in the morning. The raw image, which I was not able to find to give you a comparison, is fairly flat. It's only 1.5 stops between the highlights and the shadows and the sand dunes. But using those values, I can really make this stand out. Another example of how to, massage the values so that you're getting more depth and volume and sensuality in these particular dunes. Another example of an abstract approach between using lighting and shadow as a subject matter. And this is another Death Valley shot at one of the ancient ruins. And another Death Valley shot, which is one of my favorites. And there's a lot going on here. Okay. All right. So there, that should give you a good example as to where I'm going to go with this presentation. Okay. So shall we kind of go play? Go to Photoshop so I can kind of make my point even more. And guys, if anyone has a question, unmute your microphone and ask.
I have a question.
Just unmute your mic and ask. Okay, so let's see. What have I gotten here? There was
Howard,
one
I don't
did
think
want
he
to
can
show. I
hear
almost
us.
forgot this one
I
right
don't
here.
think so either.
Oh, what was that? You don't think so? What?
Yeah, Stephen, there's a couple people who wanted to ask questions. Are you open to questions at this point?
Yeah, anytime. As I say, unmute your mic and ask questions.
Okay,
Please ask away.
I have the question is, do you work from the color value or from the black and white value?
I work from the black and white value.
Okay, so where that the chart that you put up, do you look at the color in the live photograph and then go to the black and white and modify it that way, or do you go out and pick a color and then look for the value that you want to work? What I guess
All
I'm
right, I know exactly what you're asking. This is what you're asking. Tell me if you're wrong, if I'm wrong. You're asking if is the workflow I'm using is go to the like the black and white slider thing where you actually select the color and then you move the slider to manipulate the values of that color, right?
more or less, yeah.
Okay, I am not working that way. That is not a way I recommend.
Okay, so on in the green vineyard where you had the green in the foreground on
Yep.
the front hill and the background was pushed back, how did you differentiate between the front, the value of the green in the front and the green in the back? Did you do a selection to make it work that way?
Nope, I painted it in. So yes, I did, but not the way you're thinking. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking, does Steve make a selection with marching ants and get a precise? No, to me, that's the amateur way of working. To me, you use
The amateur.
that's I don't mean amateur as in a skill set amateur, but in terms of thinking process. If you use the Wacom pen and your paint and your stylus, you can paint in your selections anywhere you want, but not in the way that you're thinking. I'm getting ready to show you right now exactly how it works. And I
I'll
think
give
it's
a
going to
thumbs up
answer
on
your
that and
question.
go forward.
All right. So you had another question? Someone else had a question?
Mike had one.
Okay. What's Mike's question?
I had the exact same question, Howard.
Okay. Okay. Perfect. We can go forward. All right. Let's start here. This is going to start to answer your question. Here's the one I told you that I wanted to hold off a little bit. A quick shot that I took in Las Vegas. Let's look at the original. We're going to go into Photoshop. I'm going to open up the layers. I'm going to explain what I was doing, why I was doing, and what I was thinking. Okay. All right. So let's open that up. There she is. And I have a layer group up here called black and white. Let's turn it off. That's the original. Okay. So I saw this, and already you probably know the problem with this image is that everything around it is competing with the Statue of Liberty. The Statue of Liberty is the focus here, but we're losing focus because we're going everywhere, right? We're going everywhere all around the sides of the image because of all this sharp detail of the building in combination with the Statue of Liberty. And because the two is so close together, trying to blur out the background is a form of um, um, creating a sense of focus on the Statue of Liberty may not always be possible. So I chose to leave the sharpness of the background in, and I'm going to manipulate it in another way. All right. So what I did, and we're going to open up this folder. And I'm going to just turn everything off, exception of this. Okay, there we go. So let's see if that's right. That should be right. Black and white. Okay, that's right. So okay. I used the black and white to alter the initial image to black and white. So if I double click on this, let's see, my properties should be right here. Let's see, what do I have here? Let me go find out black and white there. Here, let's see what's going on here. There it is. It's a smart object. So I used the sliders to knock down, to manipulate this stuff back here. Now, this is just a stupid example. I'm not going to rely on a black and white filter. I'm going to rely mostly on curves. But this is just an initial, get as close as I can. The idea is to bring the tonality of those images down so they're not competing with the tonality of the Statue of Liberty. That's the goal. So I'm simply taking my eyedropper, clicking and holding on certain areas in here to see how I can manipulate their tones so that they don't compete with the Statue of Liberty. Okay, so I'm going to say I'm going to stop there. Now, I put another layer above it. It's a curves layer. Because even though I've got some success, that Statue of Liberty is still being competed with all these contrasty tones all around her. All around her, there's still competition. So I created a curve. So I'm going to turn it on to knock down the contrast. So what did I do? If I go to the curve, and this is where it was initially, I created a selection around of the Statue of Liberty, And if I click on the mask, this is what I did. So that all the white areas around it is what's going to be affected and not her. Then I went to the curves and said, take the highlights of everything all around her and bring them down. Bring them down. Go to the highlights up here and just bring them down like that. So when things are shaded compared to something being in the sunlight, that shaded area loses both saturation, but it also loses contrast. And I'm trying to mimic that effect. Now, I think, what did I do? I turn that back on. Okay, so yeah, so there we go. So there's the image. This is this now. All of these are inside a folder. If I turn it off and turn it on, and turn it off and turn it on. Now, what I want to do is apply these values to my color. It is super, super simple. This is just a simple, stupid way that you can quickly get results, but I teach this in my advanced class. My intermediate Photoshop with the Wacom tablet starts on the 24th, but the value-based stuff will start up right after that ends in the advanced class. So I can take this group and give it this special layer blend mode that tells Photoshop, avoid all the color and just change the values. In other words, take these values in this group. Is Carla watching? She's writing down. And we're recording, right? We are recording. Okay, cool. Cool. Thanks. All right, so watch this. If you look at the blend modes here, they're all changing. But when I go down to the bottom to luminosity, luminosity means no color. Just avoid the color, only change the values. Boom. Is that making sense? Now we're going to talk about this in other ways too, but now she stands out, right? She stands out, and your background is muted. And my only problem with the background here is that it's too saturated. And I do need to bring down the saturation there. And that's easy to do. Because if I just, here, if we put a hue and saturation adjustment layer right up here. In fact, before I do that, let me delete it. I'm going to delete it. I'm going to start over again. If we go back and get our mask that we already created for the background, if I hit Command click on the mask, I have my merging ends. The key to mastering Photoshop is mastering selections. Selections, masks, and channels are exactly the same thing. Now that I have the background selected, now I can go get back out of here by clicking on the image. And now add my hue and saturation, which automatically now honors the selection and takes on the areas that I want to affect. And I can bring down the saturation just for that background. Bring it down to taste. If I feel it's a little bit too much of an effect, I can always bring down the opacity of that layer group, right? In fact, I see I can bring, if I want to bring it down the whole, I guess I do want to do that, don't I? I guess I do want to do that. I'm going to select them both and hit Control G for group again. Now they're all together in the group. Now I can just bring down the opacity of that group. So it gives you the best of both worlds, if you so choose to want to do that. All right, so let's go do something else. I'm going to Close this out. Not going to save it. We're going to go back to go to the work files. We're going to go play. Okay, so let's actually do some practical application. Let's do this one right here. Let's play with this concept. And what we're going to do is we're going to go into Adobe Camera Raw. So I'm going to show you how to use Adobe Camera Raw in the way that you probably have not been using, that's going to drastically improve your work instantly. Command R for Raw. And of course, Photoshop gives you color. That's what we get as digital photographers. Color is in your way. Color is a crutch. Color is your weakness, but we don't know it yet. We really want this to stand out. So I'm going to Control Plus and zoom in. I want detail everywhere, right? We're missing a lot of detail because there's a lot of lower mid-tone in here that's just blocking up all your detail everywhere. But you don't know it. You think because your camera gave you a raw file, that's the way it's supposed to be, and you don't go any, and often people don't go explore further. So let me zoom in a little closer. And this is what you're going to do. Here, let me just pull it back just for the starters. The first thing you're going to do is get the color out of the way. Eliminate it completely. You are addicted to color. We take the color out. Take the saturation slider all the way to -100. Now, do you see what's going on in your file? And now you see it, right? It was hard to see it because you had this freaking color in the way. Get it out of the way. Even for my advanced students, they have the hardest time wanting to discipline themselves to work this way because they're in a hurry. Slow down. And then you'll naturally speed up later on. But for right now, we're missing a lot of detail. All right. I want shadows with detail. I want highlights with detail. I want a beautiful mid-tone in there with detail. So I need to take the shadows out. The shadows are so blocked up, I can't see details. So I'm going to zoom in closer so we all can see. We're all going to get a good look at what's in here. Okay. Let's pull out this muddiness out of here. Okay. How do we do that? We go to the shadows right here. Now, everybody needs to watch this. We go to the shadows and we pull it up and out and get those midtones out of there. So now we can see lots of detail in here. Before we had this. Now we pull that on up. Okay. Now, keep in mind that the goal here is to have a flat image. That's very important. Now look at that. Now we've got all types of detail. We have so much detail, it's kind of weird looking, right? Don't stress out about it. We're going to bring the black back later. For right now, I want detail. I want to see detail. And if we go through here, you notice that we pulled up so much lower tone that the whites are too bright now. Now we go into the sliders, we go to the whites. Now keep in mind that when Adobe created Adobe Camera Raw, they're telling you to start from the top and work your way down. No, don't do it. Shadows, highlights, midtones, shadows, highlights, midtones. Manipulate your shadows to get the detail. Next, manipulate your highlights to get the details. Then we'll deal with the midtones later. We went to the shadows to bring up detail. We're going to go to highlights next. Contrast is the devil. Never use it. Ever. So now go to the highlights. So well, we got to go look at the highlights. We got to get in close, look at your highlights, and let's see if we bring it up, it gets blown out, right? But if we go the other way and look at the detail we pulled in there now. Okay, we did a good job. We got lots of detail in there now. If we went back to where it was before, look at that. It's getting close to just the midtone, the normal position, which is 0. It's just too bright. So we're gonna bring it on down to pull the detail in there. Now when I did that, some of the lower the lower midtone areas went down a little bit. So if I need to go to the blacks, which is the extreme blacks, I can bring those up. So watch this. Watch it very closely. As I go to the black slider, which is extreme blacks, and bring them up, I can pull in a little more detail in there. Maybe just a little bit. Okay. Now, we've accomplished what we wanted to accomplish. Look, we have detail everywhere in the shadow areas. We've got details in the highlights. Now we need to go back and reestablish the shadows. All right, let me pull it back a little bit. All right, so we're going to leave the light area, and it's called light appropriately because this is dealing only with the values. We're avoiding the color as we've already pulled it out, and we're going to come down to the next one called effects. This is going to reestablish our shadows. I'm looking at this thinking that, you know what, I can probably afford to bring up the brightness slider, not the brightness slider, but the exposure slider, shadows, midtones, and highlights. As we already learned, shadows deal with the lower tones only. Highlights deal with the highlight tones only. Exposure deals with shadows, midtones, and highlights equally. So I might be able to pull that up just a little bit like that. There we go. Just a teensy bit. Just a teensy. That may have been a little bit too much, but just a teensy bit. Some of you scientific-minded people out there probably looking at the histogram going, what about the histogram? I say, screw the histogram. You're not trying to be a scientist. You're trying to make a better, more expressive, creative print. Now, let's go down here. Go to our effects. Now, this is important. If we set up our camera, say we go to Death Valley, we set up our camera, and we got a long lens on, and we see the mountains way in the background, how do those mountains look to you physically? They're very soft and low contrast because of the atmospheric haze, right? There's haze everywhere in the background. What does haze do to your image? Haze is made up of light molecules bouncing around in the air, magnifying the light. So if you have haze in your scene, what is it doing to your scene? Well, you're thinking, well, it's going to flatten it out and brighten it up. Well, you're right. It's flattening it out. How? It flattens it out by taking the lower tones and bringing them up higher. And your higher tones, it never touches. Your higher tones stay where they are. Your lower tones is elevated higher. That's what dehaze is. So if I go to the haze slider, it's going to target the lower midtones only. No, sorry, the lower shadow areas only. And if I go to the left, it gives you haze. It's bringing up the lower tones and not touching the highlight tones, the brighter tones. It is giving you haze. If you go in the opposite the direction, it's going to add more richness to the lower tones, thus giving you dehaze. Look at that detail. Now, before I go further, I guess I can't do it. All right, I wanted to duplicate this. I'll come back and do it another way, do it later. But now I've got dehaze on here. All right, so the next thing I want to do is I've reestablished my lower tone. I'm going to kind of move this around. Yeah. So by bringing the lower tones down, it's making your water look like it's brighter, but it's not. We're not touching the highlights. Remember, we added more detail back in the highlights? That detail is still there. We just simply lowered the lower mid-tone areas deeper and richer. Now this is going to get really interesting. Now, what we've done also is when we've manipulated the shadows and highlights and made them more flatter, we've messed with the midtones a little bit, the medium grays, that 18% gray area. What we want to do is add a little more contrast to the midtone to bring out details. So I'm going to kind of pop it up a little closer here so we can see what's going to happen. And you're going to deal with that with clarity. Clarity dehaze targets your low tones. Clarity is going to target your midtones and give them more, pull those midtones further apart from one another, thus giving you the sense of contrast. See that? And the dehaze I may have brought over a little too much. So if I bring that back over just to the left a little bit, then it afford me to bring over the clarity a little bit more there. Now texture targets only the higher tones, the brights. It'll target only the brights. It's adding contrast to only the highlight areas. So if I go to the textures and pull it to the left, it softens them up. If I pull it to the right, it gives us a little more sharpness. Now, if I control 0 to pop it back, look at this. It's a lot more expressive looking. And you can, let's room to monkey around with this more. I mean, I may want to go to the dehaze and give it a little more richness. See the sky there? A little more richness. It's getting more richness in the shadow. That's kind of nice. Now, this is where it's going to get interesting. Now it's time to bring back color. So we go to saturation. And we pull it over a little bit. Now watch the slider. Remember, the normal position is right here at 0, right? Pull this over a little more, a little more, a little more. Look at that. Did we have that type of detail before? No. Let's do before and after. And look at where your slider is. Right? It's not over at 0. This is telling you something. And we're going to discuss that in just a little bit. So I'm going to click done. And I'm gonna duplicate this this image. I'm gonna right click, duplicate. Let's put them next to one another right here. In fact, now I'm going to take one here. Let's see, which one's the duplicate? That's the duplicate there. I'm going to right click, go to my develop settings and clear the settings so I get the original photograph back. There. Select them both. So Howard's going like, what the heck? That's what it looked like. So, all right. Let's go and play with something else. See what else I have in here. I've got well, I guess we could do something like here's a raw file. How about this one's going to be interesting. I think this would be a good one because this is kind of monochromatic. So I will right click, duplicate this file real quick. I'll bring it on up, put it next to the other. So we have it side by side. At least that's what I was trying to do. There we go. Okay, so that's the copy. So we'll work on the original. So Command R for Adobe Camera Raw. All right, so every image is going to be unique. I'm not teaching you a step-by-step process. I'm teaching you a concept. Every image is going to be unique. Here I've got some. I start by looking in the shadows to see if I have detail in the shadows. And the shadows are pretty high in value already. So what we're going to do is we're going to take out the color, right? So I want to see all value. There's some color there that's not much, but we don't care. It's going to be a good habit. Take it all out. Now the color's out of the way. Now you get to see what's really actually there. If I go to my shadows slider, and another thing that I like to do too is I like to go down to my lens. I think it's called lens optics, not lens optics. Turn on your chromatic aberration and turn on your use profile correction. I don't know what camera was used here. It doesn't seem to be finding it. I think it's my, let's see, go to here. It's my, I know it's my Canon. There it is, found it. Yeah, there we go. I like to have the optics set on with removing chromatic aberration and profile correction. This is just as a habit. Let's go back up. All right, so we'll go back up to the top to our lightness section here. We'll go to the shadows and pull them up to see if I can pull any information up on the shadows to give me more detail in the shadows. And it does look like that I can a little bit. In addition, I've got these highlights everywhere. I think I can pull down more detail into those highlights. Go to the highlights and pull them down. And I'm able to pull a little more detail in there. Not a whole lot. It doesn't matter. We'll go ahead and pull it down. We even have the whites here too. If I want to go to extreme whites and pull them down, I can, but I think I'm going to leave it kind of where it is. This is about as far as I would go on this one. I mean, I might go to the exposure and pull it down just a little bit. We're going to leave contrast alone. That's the devil. And I will now come on down to our effects tab. And let's go to dehaze. Let's see what dehaze does. So remember, dehaze is going to target these extreme lower value areas. And let's see what it gives us. There, nice. Now bringing back in the shadows, the dehaze also is telling me that I probably want to keep the exposure where it was. So I'm going to double click on that and make it go back up again. Then I'll come back down to the effects for the dehaze. Midtones, we're going to improve that. Let's zoom in a little closer. And now we'll pull the clarity over to the right to increase the contrast in the midtones. And look at that. Look at that nice little detail coming through the fog. Now we have left is the texture, which is going to target our highlights, right? So I will go to the texture, pull it to the right, and look at that. They start to pop out. All right, so Control 0. That's very different, isn't it? And we'll compare it to the other one as well. Now let's bring back in our color. Let's go to our saturation slider. Move it a little bit to the right, sorry. A little bit more. A little bit more. Already the color is starting to look garish. And there was hardly any color there to begin with. Now we're starting to get color to really jump back in there. Let's see if I did a little bit more. Yeah, that's about as far as I want to go, I think. Now I'll click done and we'll do a side-by-side comparison. So that's the after and before. After and before. And if you like this more, this this little more of a hazier look, you can always bring it back. So are there any questions at this point before we go further? I'll drink some water here while I'm thinking about it. Let's see. Aaron Houston's profile on Behance. Okay, is Aaron here? Howard's here.
Stephen,
Yes, Aaron
this is
says hello. He
Mark
is
Lindsay
here.
here. Question for you.
Mark is asking, Mark, keep asking your question because it takes a while for my speakers to kick in on Zoom. I don't know why it does.
Okay.
So, Dave, now I hear you. Yes,
Oh,
I hear you now.
Good. I was going to ask you, the picture you were just working on looked like it was a JPEG as opposed to a RAW file.
Yes, only for
That's-
presentation purposes because I want to work because I've got Zoom connected to my
Right.
graphics card and I want to keep my memory level as low as possible.
Which is
But-
great, and
but-
I have no problem with that. But I'm just curious as to how my experience of doing what you're just doing would be different.
Well, I've got a couple of raw files that I actually put in here for that purposes alone. And we can try it on one of these. How does that sound?
Sounds great.
All right. They're right up here. The two CR2 files right up here. They can work. I think we'll do this one here. Just for the fun of it. I've got another one here. I've got this one here too. That's the CR2 file. Maybe we'll do this one. That's a little more landscapish, natural looking. Are there any other questions before I go further? And I'm looking through the little chat. And you can just unmute your microphone and just ask.
Can you tell us how you masked the Statue of Liberty?
Using your standard selection tools. I can, yeah, sure. That's an easy one. I'd probably use the object selection tool.
Okay,
Photoshop. That's probably what I use mostly. And then I
Okay.
use a lot of the quick masking techniques with where you're painting with the red
got it.
out to isolate it more accurately.
So that did a pretty good job.
Oh, it does. Because the quick mask, you're actually painting it in. And
Gotcha.
if you have little problematic areas, you can zoom in close and paint them in.
Okay,
Maybe one day, if Howard wants to, I don't know, wants to, we can do a workshop maybe on advanced masking or something. Then we could get more into that.
cool.
Okay, so I am going to let's work on this one real quick, and then we'll jump into Photoshop on something. I will Command R. This is a raw file, and we are working in 16-bit. In fact, before I do anything, let me cancel this out. Let's duplicate this. So right click, so we can do it before and after. So right click, and let's go to duplicate. And the other one's right down at the bottom. It always drops it at the bottom instead of putting it next to the other. Cool. All right, there's my original. Command R. Okay. First thing we do, get the color out of the way. All the way down to -100. Now we can see what's there. Now we can see that this is really bland and boring, and detail is kind of blocked up in here. Right? So not a lot of depth. There's no depth at all. All right, let's pull this back a little bit so we get a little better view. Any little shadow areas in here, I'm going to see if I can pull out any detail. So we'll go to the top, and we're going to be focusing on the light section. That's our value section. Go to my shadows, pull it up and out. You can see it's getting a little flatter, and that's a good thing, because that means you're pulling out detail in here. Right? So if I just get in a little closer, you're opening up more detail in here. It's a good thing. If I go to my shadows again, see, I can go high. Sometimes you may need to go all the way over, which I think I do in this one. And that's okay. All right. Photoshop, it would be nice if Photoshop gave us more slider ability to bring up those shadows, but they don't. So we use what we've got here. That looks good. I like this. This is nice and flat. Now we need to deal with the highlights. These highlights are getting, out of control. They're not really out of control, because if you look at your histogram, there are no highlights. It looks like there's highlights, but there really isn't any highlights in here. So if I take the highlights and slide it down, see, it goes even flatter. Look at that. Look at that. See that? Let me get in closer. All right, so this is where it was over here. Now we're pulling it out more. Pulling detail in those highlights there. They can come down more, but we'll deal with that in another way. Maybe could I afford bring the exposure down a little bit? Let me see what happens. Well, maybe we'll just leave it right where it is. And I should still be there, but if I go down to the lens, the optics, what I forgot to do is make sure remove chromatic aberration and use the profile. It found the profile. That's good. All right, now let's go reestablish are shadow details. Let's go back up to the top here and go to our effects. We want dehaze. All right, let me bring it down, zoom out a little bit more. There we go. So we kind of see a little bit of the overall image. And bring the dehaze up, 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 up. Yeah, I'm liking that. I'm liking it. I'm feeling it. Yeah. Okay, now we need contrast in the midtones. Okay, let's see what happens. Clarity. There. We need to get it closer. Yeah. Now, texture. There. Control 0 to pop the whole thing in. Look at the richness that we've established down here. We didn't have this before. We got the nice richness in the background there. Now let's go to the slider. A little bit, a little bit, a little bit. Yeah, look at that. A little bit more. Look at that. Okay, now let's talk about and get some understanding as to what's really going on here. Why couldn't you get this before with Adobe Camera Raw, and all of a sudden I come in and show you you can get this now? Look at that. See, there's depth there. There's real depth. So let me share with you what's actually going on in Photoshop. If you take a look at this saturation slider, it's not at 0. 0 is right exactly where this vibrant slider is. It's below 0. The higher your saturation, that means that you're clipping off your highlights. You're destroying your highlight details. The fact that your saturation slider is so low is telling you as an artist that you have a lot more information in your file now than you had before. If you worked the normal way, you would have destroyed a lot more information, a lot more pixels. Here, you've got a lot more information available to you. Well, how is that possible? It's very, very simple if you understand Photoshop. Photoshop doesn't work in RGB. It never did. Photoshop does not work in CMYK. It never did. Photoshop works in LAB, lab. That is the base function code that Photoshop, in terms of dealing with color, that Photoshop is working under. LAB is what we address in my advanced class. LAB in Photoshop. Here, maybe I'll show it to you this way. Let me open it up. In fact, what we should also do is do it before and after as well. So let's go back real quick and take a look at that. And put them together and slide them on over. You can see the difference. Or if I just select one, maximize it, and then before, after, before, after. If you look at this, the color and the values in here look differently to you. It just looks differently. It's cleaner and much more delineated everywhere. Because when you told Photoshop to get rid of all the color. And because Photoshop is working in LAB, lightness means value. A and B are your two color channels. When you eliminated the color in Adobe Camera Raw, Photoshop goes, oh, then all I need to do is pay attention to the L channel, the lightness channel. That's what's going on in Photoshop. That's why this works. So if we go back into Photoshop, there we go. And if you look at our channels over here, see my channels is closed up. Let me go open it up. Go to my channels. There we go. Right? You got RGB, right? Well, Photoshop is working under something called under mode LAB. Now I've just switched it to LAB. Going to image, mode, and I switched to LAB. And it was RGB, it's now LAB. So you got lightness. All your black and whites are now in your lightness channel. And then your two channels of color are here. We're not going to talk about LAB tonight. I'm just making a point. So, how much time do I have to make sure I'm on track?
You've got
Oh, say it again. I didn't hear your
Yeah.
voice.
20 minutes.
20 minutes? Okay, good. Perfect. That's perfect then. Right on time. So, we're going to do a giveaway tonight. Is that okay, Howard?
If you got one.
I always have a giveaway for you, Howard. We're going to do a giveaway of my 5-week intermediate Photoshop class. How does that sound?
I'm sure that the members will be happy to win.
Okay. And Mike's going to be in that class too, so you'll be in good company. Okay, so where was I going with this? Okay, so that's what's going on in Photoshop. This is LAB thing. Any questions before I go further? Anybody?
I have a question.
Sure.
Will it have the same effect if you're doing architecture?
Yes, absolutely. It'll have the same effect doing anything.
Say again?
It'll have the same effect on anything.
Okay.
Because all you're dealing with is an imagery made up of two concepts. One is black and white, and the other is hues or color. All of our creative media is done that way. If we're drawing or painting, if we're gonna do a canvas, we're gonna paint a canvas or a portrait. You got the pencil, then you put the charcoal and add the values. And after you get the values mapped out and the details the way you want them, then you add the color paint on top of it. So everything we do as human beings is made up of two systems, values and color. The problem is, like we talked about earlier, is that in photography, we're getting color right off the back, and the color is not that great, and for a reason, because our technology is limited. So the photographic companies want to ensure that we get the best detail that we can. So they give you more green pixels than red and blue pixels, because the green pixels is where all the detail exists in your image. The green pixels are your midtones. Your red is your higher contrast, and your blue is usually all the noise and the crap in the atmosphere that is not always favorable. So those pixels are limited in relationship to your green pixels. So your Bayer system, matrix system, in terms of how many the relationship or the proportions of green compared to red and blue. So yeah, I hope that clears up a little bit of something. A little any confusion. So let me go into and take a look at something else. We will bring something into Photoshop. Now we'll bring something into Photoshop and work it. we'll work it a little bit in raw, bring it in Photoshop, and then we'll add a little more of the value-based concept in Photoshop. And we'll work with this one here. It's another raw file. Okay. Let's Command R, and we will get rid of the color. Now, this is the way I work professionally all the time. I take out that color so I can see what's going on in these values. And I can see that I can use a lot more detail in the highlights and a lot more detail in the shadows. So I will go to the top to my lightness. I'll almost always start with my shadows. And oh, this one already manipulated? It looks like this. I don't know what is going on here. This should not have been manipulated. So let me double click this. If I double click it, it should go back to 0. Okay, hold on a minute. Let me cancel this out. Right click on this one, develop settings, clear those settings. All right, now let's do this again. Command R. Okay, there we go. So pull out the saturation. Go to my shadows, pull those up. See that? I can pull up a little detail underneath here. Go to my highlights, pull those down. See that? See the highlights in here? I'll zoom in closer so it's easier to see. I'm gonna my highlights. Yeah, so you can see that. Yeah, I can pull in a lot more detail here. Okay, now let's reestablish the shadow. So I'm gonna control minus a little bit so I can see a little more of my image. And just so I don't forget, I'm gonna come down to my remove chromatic aberration, use profile, tell it's a Canon, so it sees my, there we go, okay. Now let's reestablish the shadows, because right now it's very flat. Go to my effects, dehaze, pull it on over, look at that. Isn't that different? I don't need to go as far. This one, I don't need to go as far on the dehaze as I did on the previous files. Every file is unique. So clarity, increase the mid-tone contrast. There we go. Look at that really snap out. I can go a little further in. And then go to my textures, which is for the highlights only. That should make that really pop. Yeah, it's nice and crunchy. Crunchy is a technical term. So now we'll
Very good.
bring it back and go to our saturation. And really, it's more richness and depth. It's more richness and depth. And then I will click open. There she is. Okay. Do we want to do a before and after on that one? Let me see. Let me go back to this. I guess we could real quick. Let me go and oh crap. There it is. Okay. Right click, duplicate. Bring that on up, do a little before and after. Right click, develop settings, clear those settings. There we are. So space bar, that's the original, and that's with the value-based workflow. Big difference. The original workflow, but you really see it in here. You really see it in here Before, after. Look at that. It looks like wood. It looks like dilapidated paint and wood and rust.
Stephen,
Yes, sir.
I saw that you have a photo in there of bringing up the shadows in architecture. There says shadow highlights on the right-hand edge right there.
On the left side, you mean?
No, on the right edge on the architecture, right there. You not next, right next to
Oh,
the,
that one there. Yeah. Oh, that's a good one. Okay. We'll do that one. Let's do that. Let's do Command R. Oh, actually, before I do that, let's duplicate it so I don't forget. Let's do this one here. And that one I took in Boston. Thank you. All right. Duplicate. We'll bring it on up, put it next to that one, and I'll work on that one. Command R. Okay. All right. This is a good one. Did this one in Boston. This is a fun one. Matter of fact, maybe I'll do this as an example. But anyways, in Photoshop. Okay, so get rid of this, get rid of the color, the same concept, no different. Pull the color out. Now we see what we're dealing with. Get my detail into the shadow, go to my shadows, pull it on up. See? Now go to my blacks because I think I've got some deeper tones in here that needs to be pulled up a little bit. Kind of do this and go to the blacks and pull those on up. There we go. So I'm needing to go all the way over, unfortunately. That's the nature of this image. This image was underexposed, so I've just got to bring it all the way on over. Highlights in here, go to the highlights, pull it on down. See that? If I pull it on down with the highlights and then bring exposure up, there we go. That's working. See? All right, and then from here, we need to reestablish our lower tones, right? We got rid of our lower tones. Now but when we bring back the lower tones, all this detail that we see in here, all this detail is going to pop out. It's going to remain. Got this remove thing. I actually took this out. I don't want that there. Let's see. Can I do? Oops, accident. I gotta do it again. Oh crap. I hate when I do that. All right, now let's do it really fast. Pull that on out. I remember shadows was all the way up. Blacks were all the way up, and highlights were all the way down. Was not all the way down, just partly down. And I think I brought the exposure up slightly right about there. Okay, now we're going to go over to our effects, dehaze, pull it on over like that. Boom, look at that. Look at that. And now clarity, pull that on in. Oh, wow, not really jumping. I'm feeling it. Now, highlights, textures, pull it on over a little bit. Yeah. Let's see, I might be able to even come over here and pull out. See what do I got with the shadows? Shadows are all the way up, blacks are all the way up. Yeah, it's not much we can do. I think I can bring the exposure up a little more. Yeah, get that. Yeah. Highlights, I got a little room to move, so I'll pull it down a little bit. There we go. Yeah. Okay, now Bring in the color. Saturation, a little bit. Look at that red light just pop out immediately. Pop out, look at that. Look at that. Look at that.
Hmm.
Isn't that interesting? Remember, it's working, Photoshop is working in LAB. It's working in LAB. So now if I click done and compare it to the original, before and after.
Hmm.
Before and after. I think we're out of time, aren't we? We should probably do the
Yes.
giveaway.
If you're gonna do your giveaway, you should probably start.
All right, so let's do this. I am going to, let me get my, we'll do it this way. Okay, so here's a notepad. I like my WordPad better. I think it's easier. Let's go to WordPad. Doesn't matter. Microsoft Word doesn't matter. Let me go to new one. Okay, there we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to type in a letter, not a letter, a number from 1 to 50. And everybody's going to put in their number in the chat box. So I'm going to take it off this screen. And I'm going to type in from 1 to 50. I'm going to type in a number. Now, I've got my number in there. And you guys start typing in your number. And whoever gets closest to my number wins the 5-week intermediate Photoshop class that starts on the 24th. Let's see, look at the numbers here. Good, all the numbers are coming in, they're coming in. I think I've got a, oh, I got a winner, but all right, I'll show you what I have. The number is 3. The winner is Mike, but Mike's already in the class. So we got to do it again. We're going to do it again. So I'm going to type in a bunch of gibberish here. It's like a little, to separate what everybody already did. And I'm going to put another number in here. We're going to do it again. And Mike's not going to vote.
I put in 0. I don't know why you see 3.
I'm 3. You're 0. You won, and you already in the class, so you don't get to play.
Oh, you mean closest? Okay, but I didn't follow directions.
No,
You said from
no,
1 to 50.
obviously not listening either.
No, I did it on purpose because I'm already in the class.
Right. So you're already in the class.
So Howard should be it. He's closest, 7.
Well, I'll just redoing it again. So everybody can start putting in a number.
Okay.
Don't mess me up, Mike. You
Okay.
already messed me up once.
All right.
All right. I think we got 2 winners. Okay, we got another one. Let's see another one. Let me see. Did everybody get theirs in? I want to make sure. Oh, we got a winner. I think I got 1 winner. I had 2 winners. Now it's 1. All right. So it looks like the winner, mine is 10. So it looks like the winner is Tom Kazunas. Tom, I'm gonna put my email address in the chat box here.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Congratulations and welcome to the class.
Thanks very much.
Okay, I'm going to give you my email address. So send me your cell phone number, and so I can put you on the mailing list. So that's going to start on the 24th.
No, sorry, you want my phone number?
Yeah, I sent you my email. Check the chat box. I gave you my email address. So just email it to me. Email me all your information and give me an email saying that you're the guy that won the class. Okay. So I'm now before we go, let me go ahead and talk about the intermediate Photoshop class coming up. And I'm going to take the link and put it in the chat box for anybody who wants to register for the class. I highly recommend it. It's a really good class. And it's going to be your opportunity to kind of learn how to apply your Wacom tablet. And then we're getting a lot of the masking, and also the compositing effects and all of that. But it's going to be with the Wacom tablet workflow. So on my website, you go to the workshops, go to Photoshop workshops, and I'm going to take this link and put it into the chat box for everybody's convenience. There you go. That's the next class that's coming up. I'm also going to go back to the workshops. Go to Photoshop for the advanced class. If anybody feels that they prefer the advanced class, but I recommend the way that I teach this stuff, I recommend you do the intermediate first. And then you'll transition to the advanced class. So this is, I'm going to, let's see, advanced Photoshop.
Then make sure you're sending it to the whole group.
Oh, I'm not, oh, got it. Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't send it to you. Okay, very good. Sorry, Carla. I
No
wasn't
problem.
paying attention. All right, so meeting group chat. Okay, so this is now let me go back and get the other, which is the intermediate class. And I'll type in intermediate Photoshop. Okay, one last thing is today is the last day to use this discount code. It's my Wonderfest discount, WonderCon discount code. And it ends tonight at like 11:45. So I'm gonna put that in there now. Let me go get the discount code, type it in.
Howard,
Yeah,
I sent you my email address in chat. If you could send me the recording, please.
we'll get that done.
All right.
All right, let me go get this discount code here. I'm just going into my little
Steven,
notepad.
Steven,
sir.
the link you put in for the intermediate class is the same as the advanced one. I think.
I may have copied the wrong one. Hold on just a second. I will do it right now. Go get it again. There we go. There's the discount code there. And let's see. Let me go to go back here. Come on, go back. And I want the intermediate, right? So there it is right here. Intermediate is here. And that is the intermediate with the Wacom tablet. So I will copy that one. Sorry about that. Yeah, there you go. Go on and get registered for that. Now, we will, at the end of the intermediate class, we're going to start addressing the value-based workflow concepts in the LAB, but we will be getting heavily into the value-based workflow and the LAB and all that in more advanced features in the advanced class. And I would love to have you guys in there. I limit the class to only about 8 to 10 students, so it's small and private. Every week is every week is recorded. You get the recording to help you with your homework. after class. Everybody finds that to be helpful.
Stephen, thank you for the class tonight. I really learned a lot.
Oh, great. I'm glad that it helped. And sign the Photoshop, then get involved in the Photoshop users group. I think where is the we have a mail list for that. Where did we put that? Actually, that's on my site. Let me go grab that real quick. That way I'll notify you of all of our meetings and anything else that's going on in the area, like free workshops or maybe paid workshops. Join our mailing list right here. Let me go get it and give that to you again. So at the minimum, everybody should join on and become a member. There you go. At a minimum. And we've got some really nice presentations coming up for the Photoshop user group as well. All right, I guess we're done.
All right. Thank you. Good night.
No, good night. This has been a lot of fun, and thank you guys for being here.